Welcome to another edition of Gen Sports Corner back at you. January 16th. This is Tuesday morning quarterback. That's how about we call it that. Um,
Yeah.
you already know what time it is. You don't need the introductions. You know homeboy right here. You know me. And we're here to talk about the fallout. Um, so much to go over. And for those of you guys that tune into a lot of these episodes, it's going to feel like we're rehashing the things that we say week in and week out, but we're going to go over the same issues once again, but this time we're going to give some closure to the situation because we are officially in the off season for us. So with no further ado, I'm gonna let you kick this off, man. You set it off, man.
Well, when I watch this team, Stan, when I watched last night, I look like I have concerns that it looks like a quarterback who's checked out. When you see him arguing on the sidelines with players and like Dallas, it looked like him and Dallas got into it, and it's just like it just seems like Nick Sirianni has just completely lost his locker room. And when you have DeAndre Swift, who only has 10 carries, you have just the play calling you're continuing to be stubborn, and just like not giving Jalen Hurst the proper protection with, Todd Bowles going all out with the blitz. It's just a concern for me moving forward if they do decide to keep Sirianni, which I don't think they will, because it's like, how do you have convince a locker room to continue to believe in that the way the season went at the end of the year? So, and the way the defense played too, it's just the same trend. The second, except I will say, defensive line in this game, they balled out. They looked pretty good. They played with some energy. The secondary was still getting torched.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the one bright spot of this game was defensive line really stepped up and they played a good game, regardless of those 32 points. What's your thoughts on it, man?
The fact that this game was 16-9 at the end of the half, after all that transpired in the first two quarters, I think one speaks to the ineptitude of the coaching staff. Two speaks towards lack of play at some positions, which you already alluded to. But three speaks towards the amount of immense talent on this team that they, in my opinion, in essence, willed themselves to still be within 7 points at that spot when they really shouldn't have if they
Yeah.
didn't have the talent to do so, which makes it all the more frustrating. So I
That,
want to ask you, what did you see in particular with some of the things outside of the defensive line that stuck out to you, good and bad?
well, it's just that like as far as like you like with secondary linebackers, like all that. Well, it's just they just continue to get torched, and I just see a lot of the same zone coverages. Just just still getting torched. Like I just don't know any other way to put it. And then just with the continuous, because teams are attacking that middle of the field. You see that on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And teams are recognizing that. And the fact that you're not making adjustments to, you know, try and help it is boggling my mind.
So my opinion is that this is a game that was lost in the gym. And what I mean by that is this is a game, excuse me, getting over cold people. This was a game that was lost back in August, July, June, when you went ahead, no, actually long before that, really, when you went ahead and opted for inexperience and youth at the offensive and defensive coordinator spots, as opposed to going with experience, particularly because you had a team and a roster that was on the cusp of a Super Bowl. If you were a young team coming up, let's say you went to the playoffs like the first year with Jalen, the first time we lost to Tampa Bay when we went in there and lost it to Tom Brady. Okay, you're a young team. He had his obvious flaws. He's a second year quarterback. Cool, I get it. That's the time where you hire a young coordinator, i.e., when you had Shane Steichen or when you had Jonathan Gannon. That's fine. And then you go to the Super Bowl, and now when you're on the cusp of that Super Bowl, um, returning to that Super Bowl and you lose Gannon, you lose Steichen. Somebody please explain to me why they didn't, unless he didn't want to be here, and for all we know, maybe he didn't. Why is Vic Fangio in Miami as a defensive coordinator, but not as a defensive coordinator in Philadelphia when he was already a quality control advisor during that playoff run, that Super Bowl run, right? That 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 is what really sticks out to me the most because the inexperience in the play calling is what has been plaguing us the entire year. And I think Shannon Sharp put it very well when he said you have a luxury car, a sports car even, and the check engine light comes on and you keep ignoring it until you finally have to call AAA when you're on the side of the road. Something that you could have addressed, a very simple issue. It might have been an electrical short, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, for whatever, right? And then instead of addressing it earlier, you let it grow into a short that goes throughout the entire electrical chassis. Now you have to rip the whole electrical chassis out instead of
Yeah.
addressing it a year earlier and just spending the money and taking it to the repair shop. And
Mm-hmm.
these fixes are very simple, elementary things. And Brian Baldinger put up a video clip on his Instagram page. Shout out to you, Baldy. And he was talking about the inability to, or the absolute, I guess, defiance of calling hot routes against these cover zero blitzes. It's no secret that everybody has been blitzing Jalen Hurts throughout his career, but particularly this year, and not just Todd Bowles and that Buccaneers defense. He's always been known for that. We get that. We knew that was coming. But the Giants, the Cardinals, every team has been doing it this year because we have yet to show that we have an adequate response for cover zero blitz. And the adequate response is really something that any high school or college level coach can make, and they do make it, is
Mm-hmm.
you check down to a hot route, you might max protect, you kind of mix and match those things, especially. And one thing I noticed on a lot of these blitz plays, let's say you have three wide receivers to the right side, for example, and they're bringing an overload blitz, right? So you have, let's say you have one nose tackle, two guys in the B gap, and then you have two guys outside on the C gap. So that's five people on the line, and maybe you bring an extra guy up. So they're trying to disguise which side the pressure's coming from. As an offensive minded coach and as the quarterback, you have to look at that and say, okay, if I have, for example, all my receivers, my the strength of my offense stacked on the right side, I know if they blitz from the left, they have to be playing coverage to the right. I have to put maybe a flood concept to stress whatever cover three that they're going to play on that right side. They're going to have to really jazz it up with smoke and mirrors on that right side because the pressure's coming on the left. And if the
Yeah.
pressure comes from the right, well, then that's easy now because now you're vacating a zone. You're sending an extra blitzer that you're not accounting for, a wide receiver in man coverage. You're leaving something open on that right side. So it's easy deduction by process of elimination. It's
Yeah.
elementary stuff. And yet they consistently fail to make the adjustment down after down after down. And then on top of that, they exacerbate their problem by refusing to run the ball, which makes them all the more predictable in terms of whether they're going to be passing. So since I'm not
Right.
worried about you running the ball, who cares?
Right.
Who cares if you're running pistol out of shotgun? It defeats the purpose.
Right.
There's a difference between the Bills of the '90s
Mm-hmm.
when they had their run and shoot offense and their
Right.
shotgun. But guess what? They also run the ball a lot with Thurman Thomas. I think I would
Yeah.
assume Hall of Fame running back, if I'm not mistaken. And then
Yeah.
two, they also would mix in running under center with
Right.
Thurman. So you could never get a gauge on what they were doing, even when they were in a shotgun. And then you have Jim Kelly behind there, just you don't know if he's going to hand it off or not. That's where the magic came from. And then
Mm-hmm.
you take away a proper run game, and then you get the Bills of the 3 years prior where Josh Allen's getting hit in the playoffs because nobody cares that you're holding the ball passing because you can't run. And
Mm-hmm.
it changed for them until they got James Cook. They actually got a legitimate run game. Same thing with the
Mm-hmm.
Oilers of the late 80s and 90s with Warren Moon. High flying offenses, but when you get to that playoffs and you don't have a legitimate run game, well, guess what? That's what allows teams like the Bills to come back from a 38-3 deficit with Frank Reich because you don't run the clock out. Like
Exactly.
it's not rocket science, right?
Yeah.
And you just look at this team and it's the unwillingness to make the elementary adjustments. It's not like these things that they're sitting in the cave like, hey, what we gotta do? And I haven't seen this split side of this package before. It's somebody in the room should just say, just hand the ball off. Did we not remember have we not seen film of the Eagles in 2002 against guess who? The Buccaneers when they closed out the vet. And what was the main reason why the Eagles lost that game? It wasn't because we had James Thrash on the outside and Todd Pinkston. It wasn't because um, Donovan couldn't throw the ball well. One is it's because they got away from the run game. You tell me how God's green earth you have a 40+ yard kickoff return by Brian Mitchell to start the game. And
Mm-hmm.
2 plays later, Deuce Staley has like a 20+ yard touchdown run. Boom. Within the first minute or two, they scored a touchdown. And not
Mm-hmm.
only did they refused to run the ball after that, they went the exact opposite way. They got pass happy, pass happy, pass happy against a defense that is built to stop the pass, but cannot stop the run to save their lives. No disrespect to Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp and all those guys, but
Yeah.
lighting the ass. And you showed them they were lighting the ass on the first drive, but it makes too much sense to keep pounding the rock. Why would we do that?
Yeah.
Right. And that's the same thing that got Andy Reid driven out of Philadelphia the first time. And he was so stubborn. It was a come to Jesus moment for him. And he had to change his philosophy in terms of how he called plays, not necessarily his playbook.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick Sirianni is in the same spot. And I don't call for this often, but unless he has some great answer, he got to go, man. He has to go.
He does.
It's these are not difficult answers. That's the thing. They are not difficult answers. The Cowboys
Mm-hmm.
lost because they just aren't as good. They are a situational football team. If they don't get turnovers on defense, pick sixes, forced fumbles, things of that nature, they aren't as good as people have made them out to be. They're not bad, but they are not this otherworldly defense. They are an opportunistic ball hawk type of defense. And when they don't get that, and they're not giving the ball back to Dak in that offense so they can lean on a run game and get a good lead or whatnot, it becomes painfully apparent that they are not built to come from behind or win in a shootout.
No. Yeah, not at all.
They are not.
Like Aaron Jones ate, bro. And I told my friend that I said the Cowboys are overrated. Like I think their defense is because once I saw James Cook, not to cut you off, James Cook go off, uh, James Cook go off on him. I'm like, you know what? Aaron Jones has been playing pretty well, and I predicted it. I said he's going to eat, and he had 3 touchdowns and 115 yards, and they won that game simply because their defense couldn't stop anything.
I mean, you called it. I did not see that coming. I thought the Cowboys were going to win by a field goal or something like that. I did not see them not only losing but getting the doors blown off by like that. I did not see that happening.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I did think, I thought the Cowboys were going to win that game, but I told my buddy John, I said, don't be surprised if Aaron Jones goes off and they end up losing that game. That's what I said. I agree too. I thought the Cowboys for sure were going to win that game. I felt like the better team. You got an inexperienced quarterback and Jordan Love going in there. I mean, who would ever thunk, right?
Oh, for sure. So they have a very important decision to make this offseason because you have you have a lot of good pieces, a lot of good young pieces. Like you have obviously Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, DeAndre Swift, if they're smart enough to re-sign him, which they should.
They better.
Yeah, exactly. Even with Kelsey being gone, and that's a good segue. Kelsey retired after that game. We knew this was his last season, but he
Yeah,
retired after
without
that
that.
game. And look, at the end of the day, we didn't want it to end like that, but at least he went 1 for 2 in the Super Bowl. At least he got himself a ring. He went to two of them, and he's a Hall of Fame center. At least he's ended his career with that ring on his resume,
That's
and
all matters.
he's legendary here. But um, you have a good offensive line moving forward. I know Cam Jurgens didn't have a good game. I get it, but I think Cam Jurgens has shown at the college level he can play center at a high level. It's part of the reason why we drafted him. Same thing with Landon Dickerson. He played center at a high level at Alabama. Just because we moved those guys to guards doesn't mean that they weren't high level centers coming out of college. So I think they planned for this 2 to 3 years ago by getting those guys. So I don't really foresee there being an issue on the O line. We'll have Lane Johnson back and Mailata. So really the only change of pieces is Kelsey. And you're going to have your line back. You got your skill players. The offense is there. So just put a good driver behind the F1 Formula race car. That's what that's what this offseason is about. Um,
Hmm.
Now you need to strip down the defense to the bare bones outside of the defensive line, but that was going to have to be done anyway. But the offense, you got an offense, so they're going to have to really put a lot of thought into. And I don't want to put it all on Sirianni because I put a huge part of it on him, and then another part of it is you can't help losing two offensive coordinators who were pivotal parts of your Super Bowl run in 1 year, both in the same year. And then we don't really know how the selection process works behind closed doors, man. It's the Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie show to a certain extent. So that's another issue. And I'm glad they touched on this on the radio. How do you attract a viable coaching candidate to Philadelphia, knowing that they're going to have one hand tied behind their back when it comes to personnel selection
Hmm.
and coaching staff selection to a certain extent? That's going to be
Yeah,
an.
it's tough, man.
What do you think about that?
As far as having like, what do you mean exactly?
What do you think about Philadelphia and how people on the outside view taking a coaching job here? Like when they're looking at the GM and the front office structure.
I think that can turn. I noticed. I think that does turn away some of the coaches because some of the coaches like their own philosophy of running things, and I've seen certain coaches turn in the other direction because they can't run things their way. So I think that may have an impact on it. What do you think?
I think it will certainly have some impact on it.
Yeah.
It certainly will. And not just with us, but also with the Cowboys. There's a reason why they're all talking about Bill Belichick down there, right?
Yeah.
But I think Bill Belichick is really going to go to the Cowboys if he's not going to have a certain level of autonomy and control over that front office and the personnel decisions.
Hmm.
Same thing with the Eagles. Um,
Right.
because as a Raiders fan, I know this story very well. And that's part of the reason why that organization deteriorated and stayed where they're at for so many years is because Al Davis was the show. If Al Davis doesn't like the way you're running things, guess what? Al used to be a coach and he's going to run it the way he wants to. If you don't run, if Al Davis was the owner of the Eagles, ironically, they might have called all run plays and maybe no pass plays at times because if he's like, yo, you're not running the ball, Al's gonna get on that phone and say, yo, call run play because I said so. And if you don't run it, you're fired the next play. Like he's that type of dude. So and that there's a reason why John Gruden had to get shipped out to the Buccaneers and they got a Super Bowl out of us off of our hard
Hmm.
work. And we had a lineup of yes men after that.
Hmm.
Saying necessarily that Nick Sirianni is a yes man, but he's in a tough spot. Same thing with Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson was in a tough spot coming into there as a new coach. He didn't really have much power or say so to yield when it came to, hey, this guy just ain't cutting it. He ain't starting today. He might not have the full pull to be able to say that. We don't know that though. It's pure speculation. But just
Yeah.
the fact that that is even some an idea that can be floated around is an issue in and of itself.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree because I just feel as though the coaches and all the staff are like there for that job. I feel like Howie and Lori should be, somewhat stepped away from that. I feel like that should be I think that's something they really should consider changing. I don't think they will, but I just think it'd be better that way. So that way more like the better coaches might want to come to this team.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think this off season, you're going to have to look at a complete philosophy change because let's say I don't necessarily even know if Nick Sirianni is going to go because um, it depends on what is done behind closed doors. If they think that they have some good leads on some of these attractive name free agent coaches out there. If they don't, I don't see them rushing the process. That's never been their MO. If they
Yeah.
find their guy immediately or they don't feel as though they have a strong possibility of doing so, I see them just riding with Nick Sirianni for another year
Yeah.
as they kind of like do their due diligence of guys around the league.
Right. What do you think of Pete Carroll?
Mm,
Russell Wilson, just saying. Like, look what he did with Russell Wilson.
I think that's the perfect example of a guy that would want more autonomy and who would be averse to coming here for the reasons we just listed.
Hmm.
Because I mean, he ran the show up in Seattle. For better
Yeah,
or worse, he ran the show, right? And he had success, right? So he's going
yeah,
to want to say he's going to want to buy the groceries he's cooking the meal with.
yeah. That is true. If they want,
Um,
like I said, you want the good coaches, you have to do something, right?
exactly, exactly. But they're going to need a philosophy change because, again, our last episode, me and you talked about DeAndre Swift and him only getting 13 carries in that Cardinals game, a game that was pivotal for you to win, pivotal
Hmm.
to win, and you give him 13 carries, and I don't even know if he got any carries in the fourth quarter. And then you look at this game. Let's just look at the first drive was actually not that bad. I mean, they started off with a shotgun run to DeAndre Swift. And then they had another DeAndre Swift, first down, second down, another one DeAndre Swift, then two pass, punt. And then after that, it's like they did not even want to go back to the ground game anymore. Next drive, pass, punt. Next drive, pass, pass, sack, pass, field goal.
See,
They didn't even, they had two. Like you hear how many times I just said pass on those first three drives?
sounds bad, bro. That's bad.
It's just
That- that-
crazy. It's crazy.
that's just bad. It's sickening to me. I just want to throw up right now. Like, it's nauseating. Like, because when you look at, he was averaging I watched the YouTube show. I forget what it's called, but it's something Seth Joyner's on. It's one of the post game shows. Chef
Oh,
Joyner
yeah.
brought up
He
a point.
won. Yeah, yeah.
4 yards a carry, bro. He was averaging 4 yards a carry.
Yo, I was looking at that same clip. I was actually going to cut that and put that side by side with the clip that I put up on TikTok of me and you talking about this. When I said
Yeah,
he's a walk-in 4.5 yards per carry dude every play.
yeah,
I can
facts, bro.
see it. Seth can see it. You can see it.
Yeah,
Everybody watching behind the screen can see it. It's not hard, man. It's
mm-mm.
football is not a complicated game. Obviously, there are nuances, as with any sport. Simple doesn't mean easy. However, the game is easy.
It
I
is.
mean, simple doesn't mean easy. However, the game is simple, very simple. Executing is not easy, but the game is very, very simple. You run the
Yeah,
football, you impose your will, and then you set up everything off of that. I'll kind of end this segment with. I'm looking through the camera at you, Deontay Wilder. I hope I'm looking straight through the camera. I'm looking through the camera right now. Deontay Wilder. No offense, brother, but if you just stuck to your jab when you throughout the fight, when you get punched the first time, when you're throwing your jab and you get caught mid jab, don't get discouraged. Keep throwing it because you actually have one of the best jabs that I've seen at the heavyweight class. All you need to do is keep with it and hone it and and
Yeah.
and stick with it when you're walking through the fire.
Yeah.
Right? It's as with boxing. You establish that jab. If you establish nothing else in the fight, nothing else in the fight, for everybody watching, Deontay, boxing fans, non-boxing fans, if you establish that, you will be a nightmare win, lose, or draw. And if you add on to that, you're going to be very, very difficult to beat. The jab in this scenario is the run game. Just run the ball. It doesn't matter if you get 1 yard. You come back and run it the next play. And if you get 1 yard, then you come back and throw on third down. And then if you need to punt it, you punt it and you go back to the sideline. You figure out what did they do to stop those 2 runs, and you make the adjustments. And guess what? You come back out and you run it again. And then you eventually find the hole and wear down that offense. I mean that defense, and you start setting up play action off the run game. But
Yeah.
you can't, if you're not going to run the ball, then you better be using pre-snap motion and killing that defense with short horizontal throws. It's
Yeah.
one or the other. You either run a West Coast offense where you're hitting guys horizontally, stretching the field 4 yards here, 3 yards here, 5 yards there as your run game, or you run the ball directly. But you can't be devoid of both.
Yeah.
Everything is like a run and shoot offense with them, and they are pretty much like the Buffalo Bills or the uh, um, Houston Oilers run and shoot offense without the run game. It don't work that.
Mhm.
You need the run game with it, or you need
Yeah,
to.
you do.
Yeah, I mean
It's a
that's it.
right. It's not hard, man. And like, it's and stop with the friggin' shotgun too, man. Get under center once in a while too. It's like always that shotgun run. Like I like to see once in a while they need to get under center, man. We are talking about that before, I believe.
Yeah. So we won't rehash all those things. I will
Yeah.
leave people. I'm gonna leave the link to our last video. Look at the last video. All the points that you guys are probably wondering if we're gonna make, we made them last week in the past 3 weeks. Just look at them.
Yeah.
If you're seeing it, Todd Bowles is seeing it. It ain't that.
It's
Um,
obvious.
yeah, I mean, that's what it is for the Eagles. I, was I disappointed? Of course, but I didn't expect them to. I wasn't going to be shocked if they lost this game, not because they're not better than them. I think they are. They just when you refuse to lay the ball up, even though you're in front of the basket, are you really going to be surprised if that team loses? No.
Nah.
So I
Well,
mean,
so we got it.
it's just an issue. It's an issue with arrogance.
Mhm.
Not even necessarily incompetence. I just think arrogance. Arrogance,
Arrogant.
maybe 20% incompetence and 80% arrogance. You guys figure out what ratios make sense to you, but it's a combination of those two. But mostly arrogance. They have the skill. They obviously know how to call pass plays, but it's like I want to put a square peg through a round hole and wins and losses be damned. We're going to figure this out, or we're going to go home trying. And guess what? We're going home. So that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Man, it is what it is, man.
But before I any last comments or notes, anything you want to say about it?
Nah, it all pretty much got broken down pretty well.
With that being said, I do want to give a shout out to the players uh and the year that they had, even though it was a disappointing end. Um, the ones that showed hustle, I'm not gonna call names, but they know who they are, and the people that are watching the game, they know the guys that were hustling and the guys that weren't hustling. Um, the guys that weren't hustling, um, better start getting that thinking
Yo,
about
wait.
next
You
year.
know what? Sorry. I just remember the lack of tackling in this game absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like you were talking about that last night, and I thought about it, I'm like, shit, I'm like, tackling was some of the worst I think I've seen in a while. I mean, it's
Yeah,
been like that all year, but this game particularly, like, yeah, my bad. Nah, but
yeah.
like James Bradbury had, I forget who he had, but he has, it's almost like he bounced off him and just like let him run. Like, I don't know what's with this tackling.
They the leaders in that defensive locker room, the Brandon Grahams of the world, the Fletcher Coxes of the world, all the veterans on that D line, um, gonna have to pull aside the guys that when I played football, and it was just pee wee. My mindset is if I put hands on you and I'm taking you to the ground, I'm gonna see that tackle all the way through until your knee, your elbow, the top of your head is driven through the ground. I mean, I'm not trying to hurt nobody, but you
Yeah.
know, you are for sure gonna be tackled. It ain't no I'm gonna wrap up and I'm gonna sling you around, and 9 times out of 10, the momentum of you slinging somebody should send them to the ground. But guess what? When it's playoff times, guys ain't trying to go home. They're gonna find a way to stay up, and that's what they're doing.
Exactly.
Okay. So like when I wrap up tackle, like I need this. I didn't see a lot of guys tackling with nasty intentions. I'll put it like that.
Nah, not at all.
I need to see you wrap it up and driving through like you do in training camp with the Oklahoma drill. Wrap up, drive through, and take their ass to the ground. And as they're going to the ground, really like take them to the ground, see that elbow hit or that backside hit. I want to hear that exhale of pain as they hit the ground. Like I want to hear it all. You know what I mean? And then once I see that, then I'll get up. Oh, we done now. Yeah, now we're done. But the way they tackle it, you ain't done. You're hitting somebody. You're either going for kill shots, um, and trying to go for the hit stick, or you're going for the strip and not trying to tackle properly, or you're going to tackle and you're not finishing your tackles. It's just as a grown man, there's going to be a lot of soul searching being done in the mirror. You have to look yourself in the mirror after a game like that and say, that was my tackle. How did I let that get out of my grasp? And
Hmm.
that's the brutal truth. It's not to make anybody feel bad, but hey, sometimes you need that. You know what I mean? You need to be told that you playing like monkey crap, a big steaming pile of monkey crap,
Yeah,
and you lack heart. That's the worst thing to hear as a player is you lack heart. I saw a lot of dudes that maybe they don't lack heart, but it was sure hard to tell with the effort on the tackling.
I agree.
I can't speak for their effort in other areas because they see no they were trying, but with the tackling, that's most tackling is 40% technique, 60% effort. Without the effort, like the technique ain't gonna mean nothing. You got to finish.
Hmm.
So we're talking about the tackling, and again, I just want to reiterate, tackling is partly skill, but mostly effort. It's the want to. There are guys that don't tackle. There are guys that give half-ass tackles. There are guys that are solid, consistent tacklers that get the job done. And then there are guys that when they put hands on you, you are going to the ground. You don't get lucky by getting out of their grasp. You need more guys like that. You need a couple guys like that. And then the rest can be solid tacklers, but you need like 3 or 4 guys that are just nasty, just hurt you. You're in pain when you get up from the tackle every so often.
Like a Brian Dawkins tackle.
Yeah, to set the tone, to set the example.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly, it's unfortunate that Nakobe Dean couldn't stay healthy because he was one of those guys, man. He
Yeah,
was nasty. Yeah. So you need guys like that, particularly at the cornerback spot.
yeah, I
Okay.
totally agree.
Because especially when you go against those run heavy teams, if I know you're a great cover corner, but I know you don't like tackling, guess what I'm doing? I'm running 34. I'm running sweep play. I'm not running 34 dive up the middle all the time. I'm running a sweep play off tackle to try to just get action flowing your way because I know you don't want no smoke.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, for sure.
they're going to have to. A lot of guys are going to have to look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves how bad they want it. That's a tough thing to ask yourself as a man, but the film don't lie.
No, not at all.
Um, if I was big enough to play football at the NFL level, I would because I had that. I don't. I'm a pretty laid back guy. I don't really have a demonstrative demeanor, but when it comes to boxing or football, any type of contact sport, I like inflicting damage, man.
Yeah,
I
you
I
like you like
I
that
look to
nasty
initiate,
hit.
yeah, I look to initiate contact. I really
Mhm.
do.
Yeah,
Um, I'm speaking as somebody who's, I grew up in the dojo, right? So
right.
I've used to contact, like it's inevitable. I'm a type of guy that I don't get hit often, but when I get hit, um, some two more punches are coming back at you. That's my mentality.
Yeah,
That's one thing to say it. It's another thing I do it. When I
yeah.
times when I get hit, I throw back.
Hmm.
I want to get my pound of flesh back. Not everybody's wired that way. I
Yeah,
understand that. Not everybody's gonna be wired that way, and you have to find the guys that are wired that way.
yeah. That's the extra dog in you, man.
Yeah. So I tell you what, if I miss a tackle on the sideline, it's just because I'm too light in the ass. It's not because I wasn't trying to take your soul out when I'm
Hmm.
trying to tackle you on that sideline. And if I don't get a kill shot on you, I'm going at the very first thing I'm doing, I'm going for a wrap up tackle. I'm a little guy, so my go-to is always um try to pursue you from the backside, pause, and then try to grab you by them ankles and do that gator roll. I'm going to, and when I gator roll you, I'm a clamp on to your ankle. I'm not just gonna twist and then let go and then let your momentum take you down. No, I'm a twist and I'm a hold and I'm you're either going to go down or I'm going to be a small 100 pound, 50 pound weight on you until somebody comes and cleans your clock because you're dragging this 150 pound anvil on you. But
Exactly.
you're not going to get no freebies. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
Uh, it
it's
gets
a good way
very
to put it.
yeah. So that's it, for me. It's a mentality thing. It's a defensive guy. It's a mentality thing. You got to
It
want
is.
it. I don't see a. I see a lot of guys on that defense want it, but there's a couple guys that they're happy to be there.
Yeah, lackluster effort, man. A lot of no heart. Just don't care. I see a lot of that too.
Look, I'm not going to agree or disagree with you there.
Hmm.
I, there are a few guys where I see no heart. Yes, I agree, but I think the majority of the guys I see a lack of conviction, and
Yeah,
that is
that's a
synonymous.
good one for it.
That's synonymous with finishing.
Hmm.
Again, I'll keep making the parallels to boxing because we're going to head that way anyways.
Yeah,
When I have my opponent hurt, I'm one of those guys that I'm soft as a teddy bear. But as soon as I'm in that ring and that flip switches, if
right.
and when I get you hurt, um, uh, I'm trying to think of the most uh non-offensive way to say this. I'm trying to get you the fuck up out of there. Like I don't play any games. I, I'll turn it up. They have that switch.
Yeah.
I see when I smell blood. That's what I'm looking for. If I smell blood in the water, I'm a shark.
Hmm.
I can be as unassuming as like a pit bull puppy dog,
Right.
but as soon as I smell blood, teeth come out,
Oh
and I
yeah.
finish that job. There should be no question about whether that job got finished. That's my issue.
Yeah.
Leave no question that it's unfinished. And when you have a guy that's getting 5, 7 yards after the tackle, after first contact, unacceptable.
Hmm. I
How many
agree.
times, even at times with the defensive line, and the boys be hitting. I'm not saying they're not hitting, but it's like go for the wrap up tackle. They're going. The defensive line's issue at times is the opposite of what we see in the secondary and at the linebacking core is that they are going to finish the plays. That's what they're aiming for, but they are going for kill shots instead of going for technique, wrap up tackling. There's a
Mm-hmm.
time and a place to try to knock somebody's block off. 80% of the time, I just need to wrap up tackle. It doesn't need to look flashy. I don't need you to try to, make him feel that tackle every time. Just get the tackle for a 5 yard loss instead of going for a kill shot and the guy bouncing forward and only he shouldn't be only losing 1 yard on a play. He should lose 8 yards on. That's my issue. Okay.
Yeah.
It should be 2nd and 18, not 2nd and 12. Okay, because you let him get off of a kill shot type of hit, and he bounced forward for another 3 yards, and he is no make it a devastating loss. Stop allowing them to have these just okay or bad losses. No, keep it as a devastating loss. It's a
Sure.
pet peeve of
Mm-hmm.
mine. Yeah. So I Steve Atwater was always one of my favorite players, not just safeties, but players because, and he was a kill shot um
Yeah.
fanatic as well. But even if he missed a kill shot tackle on you, he was so athletic, he'd hit you again in
Mm-hmm.
the same spot. Yeah, I mean, you bounce off him and you think that you're going to go forward and regain another yard that you lost. No, he's back hitting you again, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna wrap you up this time because you got away from the kill shot the first time, but I'm not going to let you. You're going to dig your hole and you're going to stay there. You're not going to like dig halfway down that hole. No, no, we're going to really bury you, right? So
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, do you think it's a coaching thing too? Like, do you think it's there's something with the coaches like not teaching it properly, or do you just think it's to the point you're bringing across?
I think as a man, it's just effort. They didn't
Man,
get here by accident. They're not at this
right.
professional level because they just walked in looking for the bathroom and they just no, they're there. They know how to tackle.
Yeah.
It's how much you want it because everybody else you're playing wants it too, and at
Hmm.
this level, you're not going to be the best guy in the room. Everybody's been the best person in their respective states or colleges. So you're bringing the best of the best to play in one league. You got to want it each and every play.
Hmm.
So I think even when guys miss tack, it's just a matter of the other guy wanted it more. I think everybody at this level they want it. I
Hmm.
that's a mistake to question if somebody wants it if they're playing at this level. Outside
Right.
of you that may just need to hang it up, but most guys they want it. It's just, do you want it more than the next guy? You have to really ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
So if you miss a tackle, it's got to be because he just went above and beyond your effort, not because you didn't give extreme effort and attention to detail on the tackle and finishing with conviction every time. No exceptions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not hard, man.
You have to find more guys that don't take plays off. And I don't mean physically, I mean mentally. And I don't
Yeah.
mean like taking the play off like you just quit. No, just easing off the gas ever so slightly. No, no. You ain't never no easing up off the gas. You ease up off the gas when you go to take your cleats off when the game's over. That's when you ease up off the gas. During that,
Mhm.
before the game, eat food, chill, laugh, get your mind right. After the game, you decompress. But during the game, every play, every second of the game, that's what separates the goods from the great. And I'll keep going back to Larry Bird as a perfect example. Because people always look at him like, oh, this white cat can't move. He ain't that fast. He don't jump that high. But there's never a second within any game or any point in his career in college, high school, NBA, all-star game where he wasn't 100% laser focused, locked in. And that's why you always see consistently these moments where how did these guys look this way and they weren't? It's because most human beings have lapses. That's just the human condition. You're gonna have lapses, mental lapses at times. It's natural, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it can't ever happen. It's just natural. But like there's those select group of guys where it doesn't happen with them. They are so obsessed with their craft that it'll be a cold day in Bermuda before they miss a tackle or before they don't put all their focus into the same motion that they practice into the gym, into that jump shot, into the game. Every time. No
Yeah.
exception. And every guy's not going to be like that, but you have to have I'd say 1 to 3 guys on your team that are that laser focused to the point where they're obsessed. A Jerry Rice, a Larry Bird, Joe Montana, um, Tom Brady, Ryan Dawkins, Ray Lewis. Those guys, they are always intense. They might be too intense for a lot of people at times, even on them teams, even more so than people on the coaching staff, even more so than the fans, which the fans
Yeah.
might not realize. But you need a couple guys like that, right? Jalen Hurts is another one of those guys.
Hmm.
So, I mean, how many times did we look at this season where he throws a touchdown pass to AJ Brown and him and Smitty, AJ Brown and Smitty are like dapping up on sideline, playing around, and Jalen Hurts is sitting there like, because
Yeah.
you need a couple guys like that on this team. Has he
Hmm.
had his ups and downs? Yes, but it is not because he's not laser focused in. And I think that's
Hmm.
part of the frustration that's we've had with this coaching staff is because for somebody that laser focused in to have an aptitude with the play calling, of course you're going to have friction. It's only natural.
Yeah. It's hard to avoid when you lose what is it, 6 of 7, or what was it? No, 5 of 6 games, regular season games.
Yeah, they were 1-5 or 1-6 down the stretch.
Yeah.
Go from 10-1 to being 11-5 and then 11-6 ultimately. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, they were 1-5 down, 1-5 down the stretch. Yeah,
Yeah. 1 of 5. Yeah. Sounds about right.
or 1-5, 1-6. What difference does it make? Either way,
That's pretty bad.
yeah. So they're going to have to one overhaul the coaching staff, even if that doesn't mean that Sirianni is gone. I, where I stand, he needs to be gone because I've
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
echoing the same thing week after week, and I even looked into the screen, and I didn't do the shorts clip, but I said, "Get it done, Nick." I talked to
Hmm.
him. I put the
Hmm.
effort. I did my job.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now I didn't just say get it done as some generic blanket statement. I said these are the bullet points. Stop
Hmm.
fucking around and get it done.
Yeah.
Or be stubborn and you're going to deal with the consequences. And the consequences are guys like me that usually pull for coaches. Not it took me the longest time to want to see Andy Reid going, and I would keep the same energy in hindsight. But for somebody like me to say that you got to go, you got to be pretty hard headed for me to get to that point this quickly.
Hmm.
I wasn't even at this point with Doug Peterson. I used to scream from the heavens like he deserves another year. He got a raw deal when he got fired the year he did. I don't
Yeah.
have the same sentiment for Nick Sirianni because it's the obvious that he's not doing. And he's
Yeah. Stuff.
told over and over to do it, and he's not doing it. And it
Yeah.
doesn't 2 weeks of game planning and scouting and analytics. It's simply play card. I have 15 to 20 runs out of 4 to 5 different formations. Let's vary it up, but let's run the ball. And if you don't do that, well, you might be looking for another coaching job next year.
Hmm.
Right.
That's
So
true. Yeah, I don't see him coach for the Eagles next year. Truthfully, I'll be very. I mean, I'll be surprised if he is, but at the same time, a part of me won't be surprised because he took him to the Super Bowl, the year before. But he needs to be gone just by what's going on in the locker room, and I don't see how Jalen Hurts is going to feel like him staying, and then like he doesn't believe in him. He's not going to continue to want to stay in Philadelphia if he continues to stay. So I just think it's bad for that locker room just for him to be here, in my opinion.
I'll extend an olive branch and say his tenure here should be contingent upon what is said in that closed door meeting between him, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, and possibly Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
That will determine whether he's going to stay here, should stay here, or go. What answers does he give? Because is this is not an open-ended question. This is multiple choice. The answers are very obvious. You picked there were 3 acceptable answers out of the 4, and D's being all 3.
Mm-hmm.
You picked none of them. Why did you
Exactly.
not pick any of these answers? What is your response near Sirianni? And I better hear a good answer. That's the way I would be going into that meeting if I was the GM or Lori. If I don't hear
Mm-hmm.
what I like to hear, you got to be going because it's right there in front of your face. It's not a lack of talent. A lack of talent in some areas, yes, but not. Did they lack talent on defense? Sure, but so do a lot of teams. Look at the Chiefs. They don't have a great defense. They have Chris Jones. They have a couple good guys at other spots, but they're not a all-world defense. They just have a good defensive coordinator, Spagnuolo, and they do the bare essentials. They don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly. They don't cut. It's a lot of it. When you have a good defensive coordinator like that, it covers up some of the areas that are bad. You know what I mean? That actually it helps. You know what I mean? When you have that good defensive mind.
Yeah, look at the Packers. The Packers don't have a otherworldly defense. They have Walker at pass rusher. They have Zaire Alexander, and they have Savage at safety. I mean, they have guys at spots, but they're not the 85 Bears by
No,
any
no, not even close. Yeah.
do the they don't try to make things complicated. They didn't do anything special to beat the Cowboys besides that the Cowboy Dak was just making a lot of very risky throws. He had one before that pick six. He had another risky throw right before that they were fortunate to make. So if I'm the Packers, I don't really have to do a lot different. I just got to keep my guys in the same spot and say, hey, let's just bait him into making another bad throw and let's just make him pay for it this time. It's not rocket science.
No,
They didn't
not
have
at all.
now obviously like, I'm not looking at the all 22. I'm not seeing what you're doing on the back end, how that's matching up with the front end and all that. But overall, they're not making things super complicated, especially when you have a young defense. You ask them to do simple things and do them at a high level. Okay. If you
Mm-hmm.
do this at a high level, maybe we're not where we want to be at yet, but we can at least be solid and give our offense a chance. And if they want to, if they want to be hard headed like the Cowboys and the Eagles, well, then us playing solid defense will put us in a position to make us look great because we're going to make an example out of your poor play calling. All we have to do is
Exactly.
just be in it, be do your job, be in the spot I put you in, and more often than not, we'll be fine. Especially if these guys will be hard headed and chuck it up every play and throw in a double coverage. We'll be okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let us know your comments, your thoughts and whatnot in the comments. And we're going to segue. The next episode, I'm going to be talking about Ngannou and Joshua, and then I'm going to be talking about anyway and the noise he's making as a two-time undisputed champion. What a winner. With that being said, that's it. I am your host, Jen. That's my co-host Ryan. We're gonna catch you on the
Yep.
next. Go Birds!
Go Birds.